Have you ever experienced a moment so oddly timed that it felt like the universe was winking at you, pointing you toward a deeper truth hidden just out of sight? Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist, once said, "We meet ourselves time and again in 1,000 disguises on the path of life." This subtle notion of meeting ourselves in peculiar ways resonates with those strange coincidences that break our everyday pattern. Imagine you're walking down the street thinking about an old friend you haven't spoken to in years, and seconds later that friend calls you. Or you're browsing a bookstore, not sure what you need, and a title jumps out at you that addresses your exact question. These episodes feel more than random. They almost hint at some invisible tapestry weaving your thoughts and experiences together, as though reality is responding to your internal shifts. Yet in our modern, rational world, many people brush off these coincidences as mere chance, too nervous to consider that something mysterious might be at play. But what if these moments are more than luck or fate? What if they are gateways to deeper insights about who we are and what we are becoming? By the end of this exploration, you might see how synchronicity, Jung's fascinating concept of meaningful coincidence, could be the invisible thread explaining sudden shifts in identity and self-perception. It's time to question the common view that everything in life is random. Maybe there's a pattern waiting for recognition, a subtle dialogue between the conscious mind and something much larger. I invite you to join me on this journey of understanding, where we'll explore the psychology behind these uncanny coincidences, discover how they can illuminate hidden parts of the self, and consider whether these events are quietly nudging you toward who you're meant to become. Before we dive into the core, remember to subscribe if you love exploring Jung's insights and other mysteries of the mind. Now let's venture deeper and see if synchronicity could explain that sudden shift in identity you've been feeling. Synchronicity, as defined by Carl Jung, is the experience of two or more events that appear meaningfully related despite having no direct causal link. On the surface, it sounds a bit abstract, but let's break it down step by step. First, there is the external event, a sudden phone call, an unexpected meeting, a random message. Then there is your internal state, your thoughts, emotions, or even dreams. When these two worlds collide in a moment that goes beyond chance, you might feel a spark, a sense of recognition that something in the outer world has resonated with something deep inside you. It's almost like your psyche sent out a silent signal and reality echoed back. But here's the tricky part. Western culture often urges us to rely on observable cause and effect. If we can't see a direct link, we tend to dismiss it or label it a fluke. Jung challenged this assumption by suggesting that there may be a causal connecting principles at work, meaning events can be linked by meaning rather than strictly by cause. When this happens, it can point toward latent psychological contents, archetypal energies, unresolved feelings, or fresh insights suddenly coming to the surface. Let's say you've been quietly wrestling with your life direction. You felt a strange pull to change your career, relationships, or even your sense of self. You haven't told anyone, but the desire for a new path is intensifying internally. Then one day, a stranger strikes up a conversation. They mention an opportunity or a place that fits precisely with your hidden yearning. This is not just a random event. It might be synchronicity in action. The meaningful overlap suggests that your unconscious mind could be prompting you to pay attention. This is the direction you need to go, it whispers. Now, from a purely scientific viewpoint, we can argue it's coincidence. After all, with billions of people in the world, bizarre overlaps are bound to occur. But Jung would ask you to look at the personal significance. How does it reflect your inner landscape? That's where the power lies. Suddenly, you're alerted to something crucial that's stirring inside. This process is deeply tied to identity because once you become aware of these messages, you might realize a new version of yourself is ready to emerge. Support for this concept is found in broader psychology as well. Modern fields like positive psychology emphasize the importance of recognizing key moments that shape our sense of self. Meanwhile, the idea of flow states, from Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, suggests there are certain times when our internal processes align seamlessly with external actions, creating a unique synergy that leads to profound personal shifts. And if we take Abraham Maslow's notion of peak experiences into account, we see how unusual or transcendent happenings can radically alter our perspective of who we are. From Jung's vantage point, these experiences might be laced with synchronicity, pushing us toward individuation, his term for the journey of integrating conscious and unconscious aspects of the psyche to become a more whole individual. Sometimes these coincidences pop up right when we're on the edge of a transformation, but can't quite articulate it. They serve as nudges or signposts. They can catalyze an aha moment that shifts your identity. Maybe you felt that too. One day you think of an old hobby, then you meet someone who's living that passion full-time, and you realize, I need to bring that creativity back into my life. Or you keep stumbling upon references to a certain city, then you find the perfect job opening there and realize your life is calling you in that direction. The joy and excitement you feel in that moment is not just a coincidence. It might be your psyche's way of saying you're on the right path. Why do these seemingly chance events have such a profound impact on our sense of self? Jung believed our psyche is not isolated. It's linked to a collective unconscious shared by all humanity. Archetypes, universal patterns of behavior, emotion, and symbolism, dwell within this collective realm and influence us from beneath our awareness. When you experience synchronicity, you could be tapping into these universal themes. For instance, you might feel drawn to a heroic archetype if you repeatedly encounter stories of people overcoming obstacles just as you're struggling to assert yourself. It's like the universe reflecting your inner hero's call to action. Or maybe the theme of the wise old man arises when you keep running into mentors or stumbling on ancient teachings during a period when you crave guidance. These archetypal messages come alive in synchronicities and can reveal hidden aspirations or qualities you never knew you had. Let's explore a quick real-world example. Picture a woman named Sophia, age 29, who feels stuck at her corporate job. She dreams of pursuing art but is convinced she's not talented enough to be taken seriously. One morning, as she's sipping coffee at her local cafe, she overhears a conversation about a new community art project. She's intrigued but stays silent. That same afternoon, a random ad pops up on her social media about an emerging artist workshop. Later, she bumps into an old friend who just opened an art gallery downtown. This trifecta could be passed off as sheer luck, or it could be synchronicity delivering a loud and clear message. It's time for Sophia to embrace her creative side. Each of these events mirrors her inner desire for artistic expression. The meaning, not the cause, is what unites them. When she finally decides to act, this process of acknowledging synchronicity transforms her self-definition. I am not just a corporate employee. I am an artist at heart. That shift in identity is powerful. But how do we interpret whether these coincidences are genuine synchronicities or just random events? Jung encouraged us to pay attention to how the experience feels. If it resonates at a deeper emotional or intuitive level, if it sparks a sense of reverence or a sudden awakening, it's likely carrying a meaningful message. In simpler terms, the significance you assign to the coincidence might be more important than analyzing its statistical probability. This is the intersection where psychology meets the mystery of life. Another important psychological idea that supports synchronicity's role in identity shifts is the concept of self-fulfilling prophecies. When you expect something, whether consciously or unconsciously, you start behaving in ways that bring about the expected result. But what if the expectation itself is shaped by the unconscious, tapping into archetypal patterns? In a sense, synchronicity can be the spark that sets this self-fulfilling process in motion. Suppose you've been quietly believing you're destined for a major personal breakthrough, maybe launching a long-awaited business or leaving a toxic environment. Because that desire hums beneath the surface, you're more receptive to outside cues, more primed to notice relevant signs. Suddenly, coincidences feel amplified. Every little event that aligns with your hidden intention grabs your attention, fueling your belief that change is imminent. Over time, that belief catalyzes real action. It's not that the events themselves force the shift, but the synchronicities alerted you to pathways you hadn't considered. Thus, these meaningful coincidences become catalysts for real-world transformation. A second real-world example might clarify this further. Consider James, a 35-year-old who keeps reading about meditation techniques without consciously seeking them out. First, he stumbles on a social media post about mindfulness. Then he meets a colleague who happens to be a certified yoga instructor. Next, a recommended book on a completely unrelated online store turns out to focus on mindfulness practices. James starts to wonder, is this just random? Or is life directing me to explore meditation? Intrigued, he tries a beginner's session and discovers he has a remarkable capacity for relaxation and introspection. The identity shift occurs when James realizes, I'm not the anxious person I always believed myself to be. There's a calmer, more reflective side to me. Through these meaningful coincidences, he recognizes a dimension of himself that was previously dormant. Such events challenge our everyday definitions of who we are. Sometimes synchronicity can also help us confront our limitations, especially when it reveals a shadow aspect of our personality, those traits we tend to deny or repress. Maybe you keep running into the same conflict with different people, or you notice repeated themes of betrayal in your life. That might be synchronicity alerting you that there's an unresolved wound or pattern seeking your attention. Let's imagine a man named Miguel, 40, who can't understand why he keeps encountering dishonest coworkers. Every job he takes, someone ends up lying or cheating, and he wonders if the universe is out to get him. But from a Jungian lens, these recurring scenarios might be meaningful coincidences, pointing to a deeper pattern. Perhaps he never learned to assert healthy boundaries, or maybe, unconsciously, he's drawn to environments that replicate an old family dynamic. Recognizing the synchronicity of these repeating situations can prompt Miguel to do some introspection, set boundaries, or seek help. Suddenly, he's not a victim anymore. He's a participant in a pattern that can be broken. That realization can lead to a dramatic identity shift. I'm no longer powerless. I have the capacity to change my environments and my reactions. This kind of wake-up call is a classic example of synchronicity urging transformation by exposing hidden truths. So how can we apply these insights to everyday life in a practical way? First, consider keeping a synchronicity journal. Each time you notice a curious coincidence, write it down along with your emotional state, your current goals or worries, and any symbolic images that come to mind. Over time, patterns may emerge, revealing how your unconscious interacts with external reality. This practice not only sharpens your awareness, but also encourages deeper self-reflection. A second application is mindful curiosity. Instead of automatically dismissing odd coincidences, approach them with an open mind. Ask yourself, what does this incident remind me of? What have I been longing for or wrestling with recently? Engaging in this inward questioning can unlock an aha moment. Realizing you've been avoiding a career change, or longing for a new creative outlet, or seeking emotional healing. That question becomes a portal to deeper insight. Another practical approach is to share these stories. When you openly talk about synchronicity with friends or in supportive communities, you'll realize how many people experience the same phenomena. Hearing others' perspectives can spark reflection points like, what hidden part of me resonates with their story? Or, am I ready to take the leap they described? Community support can transform a fleeting sense of wonder into a tangible step toward growth. And if you're really up for exploring synchronicity's role in your identity shifts, consider working with a therapist or counselor who appreciates Jungian concepts. Professional guidance can help you interpret synchronicities more accurately, especially when you're diving into shadow work or unearthing old traumas. A trained eye can help you differentiate between meaningful patterns and random noise, ensuring you gain real psychological insight rather than forcing cosmic significance where there may be none. One powerful metaphor for synchronicity is to imagine you're tuning a radio dial. Most of the time, your mind is set to a certain frequency, routine, logical, busy, but every now and then, you sense there's another station playing in the background, a frequency you rarely access. When a synchronicity occurs, it's as if the radio dial suddenly jumps to that hidden station, and you hear a new melody that resonates with an inner truth you hadn't fully acknowledged. The question is whether you'll pay attention long enough to catch the lyrics. Another metaphor is to think of life as a cosmic tapestry, with each thread representing your internal states of mind. Synchronicity happens when the thread of your inner world weaves into the fabric of external reality at just the right moment, forming a pattern that stands out from the rest. The tapestry becomes more vibrant, revealing an image of who you might become if you follow that thread. These metaphors remind us that our reality may be more layered and subtle than we usually perceive, brimming with connections waiting to be noticed. Many of us have had at least one experience so bizarrely timed that it shook our conventional understanding. Maybe you dreamt about a specific person who gave you a piece of advice in the dream, and the next day you ran into them unexpectedly in the grocery store. Or you were agonizing over a difficult decision and, while flipping radio stations, heard a snippet of a song lyric that answered your dilemma perfectly. These stories tend to be extremely personal, filled with emotion, and they often herald big changes. The aha revelations typically surface when we realize these moments are reflections of our inner landscape. Rather than being random cosmic jokes, they're intimately connected to our desires, fears, or growth needs. Jung's legacy lies in validating these subjective experiences as potentially meaningful. He never insisted that we treat synchronicities as hard objective facts. Instead, he offered a lens through which to explore them, encouraging us to maintain an open mind about life's unexplained corners. In a fast-paced modern world, that open-mindedness can be refreshing. It provides a reminder that logic and rationality, while vital, aren't the only gateways to understanding ourselves and our journeys. Before we continue, let's take a quick moment. If this conversation resonates with you, please consider liking this video or sharing it with someone who might find it helpful. Your support helps expand our community of curious minds and sparks more discussions about the subtle forces that shape who we are. It only takes a second and can make a big difference in how we explore these ideas together. Now let's reflect on a couple of key questions. Have you experienced a synchronicity that nudged you toward a significant shift in your life? What if that so-called coincidence was an invitation from your unconscious, urging you to see a new version of yourself? For some, it might be discovering compassion after a series of meaningful run-ins with vulnerable strangers, prompting them to adopt a more caring profession. For others, it could be repeated signs pushing them to reevaluate a draining relationship, ultimately leading to personal liberation. These are not mere abstract theories. They point to the heart of identity transformation. If you follow the clues, you might find yourself undergoing a core change, like opening up to your inner artist, embracing your capacity for calm, or recognizing your power to set boundaries. Imagine the ripple effects when you trust these moments. You might make bolder decisions, move to a city that resonates with your soul, or finally begin a long-term passion project. And once you step onto this path, more synchronicities often appear, almost as if confirming you're headed in the right direction. The more open you become, the more you notice these patterns. That doesn't mean every single coincidence is a profound message. Part of the challenge is discernment, learning which coincidences truly carry personal significance and which are a simple happenstance. Over time, as you track these events and observe their emotional resonance, you'll develop a kind of intuitive wisdom. Instead of feeling at the mercy of random events, you'll feel like an active participant in a dance between your psyche and the world around you. Let's briefly touch on a third real-world example. Picture a man named Derek, age 50, who's reached a midpoint in life where he's questioning everything: his marriage, his career, his purpose. Out of the blue, he finds a handwritten note in an old coat pocket that reads, "Don't forget your dreams." He has no memory of writing it, but the words hit him like a lightning bolt. That same week, a friend gifts him a book about starting a second career late in life. Then while driving, he hears a radio program profiling people who reinvented themselves after 50. One might say Derek's reticular activating system, part of the brain that filters relevant information, is simply tuned to messages about reinvention. Yet the emotional impact is undeniable. These experiences might point him toward a more fulfilling path. Perhaps he embraces the writer in him that he'd stifled for years. Synchronicity or coincidence? From a Jungian view, that question almost misses the point. The meaning Derek finds in these events moves him to redefine himself, and that is the real power. If we integrate all of this, we see that synchronicity may well explain or at least illuminate those sudden shifts in identity that leave you questioning who you are. By connecting meaningful internal stirrings with external events, synchronicity can act like a mirror, revealing facets of yourself you've ignored or never known. It's less about passively waiting for miraculous signs and more about being receptive to the possibility that our internal and external worlds are intertwined in ways we can't fully measure in a laboratory. Once you accept that premise, you open up a realm of psychological and even spiritual discovery that can catalyze profound transformation. So let's bring our insights together. In essence, synchronicity is a causal connecting principle that links our internal world with external reality through meaning, rather than direct cause. It challenges the strictly logical view of events by highlighting the significance we find in coincidences. Supported by ideas like archetypes from the collective unconscious, self-fulfilling prophecies, and even flow states, synchronicity becomes a lens to see how identity shifts can be initiated or validated through these uncanny moments. Real-world examples, from unexpected career nudges to recurring themes that reflect our unresolved patterns, show how these coincidences can serve as catalysts for major transformations. By noticing them, journaling them, and reflecting on their emotional resonance, we develop a deeper connection to our unconscious mind. Through that connection, we become more open to the path of individuation, where we integrate hidden aspects of ourselves, break free from old constraints, and step into our evolving identity. Now, how do you apply all this tomorrow morning when you wake up? One straightforward way is to adopt a small daily ritual. Spend 5 minutes noting any odd or striking coincidences from the previous day. See if they connect to something you've been silently yearning for or struggling with. If they do, explore that link. Another approach is to practice open-minded curiosity. If you keep encountering a certain theme, a place, a word, a concept, don't brush it off. Ask what part of you might be calling out for this new direction. If time and resources allow, talk to a therapist versed in Jungian theory or share your experiences in an online forum dedicated to meaningful coincidences. Their outside perspectives can help you discern patterns you might otherwise miss. And remember to treat synchronicities as gentle guides, not absolute commands. They can be the start of a conversation with your deeper self, but you retain free will in deciding how to respond. Finally, I'd love to hear your stories. Leave a comment about a synchronicity that changed your perspective, or any moment that felt too connected to be pure chance. Have you been on the verge of a personal breakthrough and seen the universe or your unconscious reflect that back to you? Share your experiences so we can create a community of insight and support. If you haven't subscribed yet, I invite you to do so. Stay connected for more explorations of the psyche, Jung's teachings, and the extraordinary ways our inner and outer worlds interact. When we come together, we strengthen our collective curiosity and help each other decode the signals pointing us toward growth. Thank you for spending this time with me. I hope this conversation has sparked new ideas and deeper reflections. Here's to embracing the mystery, trusting those meaningful coincidences, and allowing them to guide us into ever more authentic versions of who we are. If you feel that subtle nudge even as you're listening now, don't be afraid to follow it. That might just be your next step toward becoming the person you were always meant to be.